Airport employees of Reddit, what is the strangest, funniest, scariest thing that happened at your airport? A little different, but I work avionics on F-22s in the Air Force. Most of the work is done outside. One day on mid-shift we get told to go inside, turn off the lights, and not look outside. Not knowing what the heck was going on, we obviously complied. Once everyone was inside, the big stadium lights that covered the entire airfield were turned off and all the entire airfield was dark. We heard low rumbling in the distance that was getting closer and rumors started flying. We were under attack. Aliens, you name it. Eventually we could hear 3 large planes fly very low overhead and be gone. After 15 more minutes we were given the go-ahead to go back outside and back to work. To this day I still don't know what the heck happened. I would assume that it was a classified prototype they didn't want seen. Another one, this time from my dad. We're coming off a plane at Lagos Airport. It's 1992. I'm about 10 years old, so I wander around the baggage hall and find, in a secluded corner, a service lift with a bloody great hole cut out of the door. It's cordoned off so you can't use it. I ask my dad about it. A cleaner had been using the service lift one night after a shift to go back up to the departure area, where he could stash his trolley etc. Lift breaks down between floors. The emergency help button does nothing. This is Nigeria, remember, and of course it's way before mobile phones were even introduced. He pounds and pounds on the interior of the lift, but it's in a quiet bit of the airport, where no one goes. He's not scheduled to be on shift the next day. His colleagues come in and assume the trolley has been stolen as the cupboard is open, and it's not there. They carry on. When they try to use the service lift, it doesn't work. They don't hear their colleague, as he's trapped closer to the floor below than the one above. Trapped cleaner has now been in there 18 hours or so. He's desperate. He drinks the water from the mop bucket, still pounding on the lift, hoping someone will come. 24 hours pass. His family come to the airport to find out where he is. Their village has no telephone, at least, not one that works. Colleagues haven't seen him. Maybe he's gone into the city to spend his paycheck, given to him that morning. Eventually, it's been nearly 48 hours. Trapped man is feeling sick from drinking mop bucket water. He's had to use another bucket as a toilet. The smell is unbearable. A technician arrives to try to fix the broken lift. He's saved, or not. The tech manages to get the lift back down to the ground floor, but the doors won't open. They try prying, jimmying, nothing's budging them. They even removed the motors and tried by hand. Eventually, they realize they'll have to cut him out, so they fire up the angle grinder and cut a 2-foot by 2-foot hole in the door. Sparks flying everywhere. That's just the outer skin. They can't get the angle grinder in further to the inner door. Welding torch comes out, gas axe or whatever you want to call it. Of course, this is flinging hot metal into the lift. The cleaner is absolutely scared shitless. He's been in the dark for 48 hours and now someone is flinging hot metal at him. Eventually they make a hole all the way through. He crawls out, collapses, and is taken away in an ambulance. He survived, but does not return to his job at the airport. The broken lift was still there until we left in 1995. When I returned on business in 2001, it had been repaired. I still think about the poor guy whenever I get in a lift. That is one heck of a story. I cannot imagine being stuck for 48 hours in a lift and being so desperate that I am drinking the fricking mop water to survive. Feel better from thirst. I got flagged for a random pat down and the agent asked me if I had any metal in my body, to which I said, I have an IUD. The agent freaks out and starts flagging other agents over. She musters all her calm and says, please repeat that you have an IUD on you, to which I had to say no. An IUD, a copper intrauterine device, for birth control. She didn't know what an IUD was. I bet you'll remember now. Not nearly as funny but similar misunderstanding of IUD. Grandmother, you better start taking birth control if you don't want to get pregnant. Me, well, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I got an IUD. Grandmother, shakes head unbelievable. Drinking and driving. I work at my local airport. I live on a tiny island and this airport is smaller than our library, and just last summer we had a hurricane looming down on us. Everyone is getting packed up to evacuate. We're renting cars like crazy to people fleeing and we're trying to get them out of the storm area. I was out checking on the cars we had and when I walked back up there was a man sitting on a bench out front with an apocalyptic looking storm bearing down on us. Wind whipping everywhere. Just soulfully playing the trombone. No idea where he came from or what he was doing but it was surreal. Like something out of a David Lynch film. I'm pretty sure he was just doing his job. Worked at Perth Airport until recently. Most flights in Perth go to Bali and you see some right characters. Read. Bali Bogans. A Jetstar flight was delayed by 7 hours and a woman and her husband used the time to get absolutely s-faced. The woman fancied a cigarette and rather than go outside and go through security again, lit up in the middle of the duty free. My colleagues quickly tried to stop her, but she told them to frick off. Cue airport police. $10,000 fine and no flight to Bali. Should have listened to the staff. Worked for a summer as a skycap at an airport in Maine. A couple of the 9/11 hijackers came through that airport, and then to Logan, in Boston, which is where the hijacking took place. They chose this airport in Portland precisely because it was kinda podunk and no one would pay attention as much. A guy I worked with actually showed them to where the rental car place was because the way the airport was set up back then it was in this weird corner and people would ask for our help to find it constantly. Poor guy felt like he was in some way responsible. I'll bet 1,000 people who interacted, even just a little bit, with the hijackers felt like they were in some way responsible. A school friend's father worked on passport control at Gatwick in the mid-80s. In those days passports were often handwritten and had spaces for things like distinguishing features. One day a young woman presented her passport to him, and he opened it and compared the photo, and then paused before saying this is a bit unusual. He showed her the open passport which read in part, distinguishing features, Big T. She exclaimed my bloody brother, I'll kill him. I was cabin crew doing a turnaround from Dubai, UAE to Muscat, Oman and back again. We're on ground in Muscat and hear from ground staff to take extra care of a passenger who is about to board. She was an English lady in her 50s, as you can imagine, well turned out but unassuming all the same, but she looked completely shaken when she boarded. So what happened was, she had checked in her luggage and had gone on to security. She placed her trolley bag on the conveyor belt and she went ahead through the metal detector and was waiting on the other side for her bag. Next thing she knows she's being detained, placed in handcuffs and taken to a room for questioning. They take in her bag and start questioning her. Airport police officer, did you pack this bag yourself? Lady, yes. Airport police, so you know what's in the bag? Lady, yes, and goes about describing what's in the bag. The questioning goes on for a while and is quite aggressive. The police officer then opens up the bag and right on top of everything is this parcel filled with marijuana. She's aghast and protests her innocence. Doesn't know anything about it. This poor lady is completely distraught. The gravity of it is hitting her and she's inconsolable. Drugs trafficking anywhere is a big no-no, but in Middle Eastern countries it can end up giving you the death penalty. The officers reviewed the footage of when her bag was scanned, and when she placed her bag on the belt and turned away, a man standing right behind her, in seconds undid the zips and slipped it in. She had no idea who this man was. So she was let go and free to continue traveling, but her trolley bag was confiscated as evidence. She wasn't too worried about the bag at that stage. I got her a very big brandy. Lesson to be learned is to not let your bags out of your sight, even for a second. I used to do cargo for Delta and British Airways. We ship a lot of dead people, a lot of animals, too. They actually sent me to LA to go to a class entirely on animal handling. There's regulations and procedures for everything all the way up to elephants and whales and crap. Weirdest thing we ever got to actually ship was an alligator of some sort. A whale, on an airplane, flying. Pittsburgh International, 3 AM or so several years ago. Watched an older woman tumble down the up escalator. Every time she flipped over she yelled I'm okay like Phil but from Rocco's Modern Life. Flop, I'm okay. Flop, I'm okay. Flop, I'm okay. Rolled in place for maybe a minute before someone shut the thing off. That sounds hilariously painful. I worked at a corporate aircraft maintenance place, and we had a situation where this crazy woman somehow got out on the secured ramp area. By the time one of our line service guys saw her, she had the main entry door open up on a Global XRS aircraft. When he pulled up, she looked at him and asked if he could help her get her bags on board. When he told her he couldn't, she told him she was going to fly the plane to China and didn't want to be late. After that occurrence, the security at our airport became insane. I have so many questions. Not me, but my father was regional manager of one of the rental car companies at the airport, and on 9/11 when all flights were grounded, everyone needed rental cars and it was havoc. My father said the phone rang and he almost didn't answer because he was so busy. Turns out it was the company CEO and ordered him to hand out keys free, no cost, no documentation, as the situation was severe and all other major rental companies followed suit. Not necessarily strange, funny or scary, but it is one of the few stories he told me about the job as a kid that I always remember. One of my uncles was in the air on 9/11. He said they made an emergency landing in Dallas, and while everyone else stopped to call their family, he sprinted for the rental car and got one of the last ones. I used to work on the ramp for UPS and we had a couple incidents in my time. One of our small aircraft was on approach and had an issue with his hydraulics. The pilot turned off his automatic systems to fix the issue manually, with no warning to tell him otherwise. He landed the plane without landing gear. Told this story before, but we used to ship crates of bees in our system. A box broke loose mid-flight in a Beech 99. The pilot had to declare a state of emergency, take the plane as high as it could go to subdue the bees, and then land as quickly as he possibly could. We had an employee mangle his hand trying to attach a tow bar to the front wheel. Blood was freaking everywhere and that crap was never the same. But the scariest might not be what happens at an airport, but who works at the airport ramp at 2 AM. During my 3.5 years there, I worked with 3 separate attempted murderers. One guy got into an argument at a local college and shot someone in a classroom. Another beat his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter to death. He's currently on Arizona death row. And most heart-wrenching for me, one of my friends, a dude who I was super cool with and I thought of as super nice, was involved in a robbery that went south. His partner ended up stabbing the woman they were trying to get money from. Then the two of them went on the run and his partner murdered him before killing himself. It was a dark time. Dad ran a business in Missouri and hired a mechanic who ended up being horrible. Left his tools everywhere. Trucks he worked on would break down. Everything was covered in oily fingerprints, etc. Employee was fired and forgotten. Fast forward a few years, my parents are on their honeymoon in Cancun getting on the plane to come back home, when the pilot announces over the PA system that the plane can't take off for a while because of maintenance. My dad looks out the window at the wing and sees oily fingerprints and tools all over the wing and the ground. His old mechanic walks out from under the wing and begins working under a panel on the wing. Dad gets super worried and wants off the plane immediately. Not me, but a friend. He used to work refueling planes. Most days during lunch he would sit in the airport and do some people watching. Anyway, a cart with a bunch of baggage rolls by and the bag on the end falls off without anyone noticing but him. After some time, security is notified of the unknown bag. Taking all precautions, security bring in the bomb sniffing dog to check it out. The dog sniffs it for a second and then all of a sudden begins to hump the bag. This was all before 9/11. Worked at a tiny little airport with puddle hopper planes. Plane landed on a really freaking windy day in the winter, so there was still some ice on the ground. I went out to flag the plane in and watched incredulously as the wind blew the entire plane sideways toward the ditch next to the taxiway. The pilot had to do some serious engine revving to keep the plane from going into the ditch. Kind of funny and a little scary. Luckily no passengers were on board. You have been visited by the luckiest clover cat. Subscribe in the next 30 seconds and you will be blessed with good luck for 21 days. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.